The scene continues as the battle erupted in the hallway's oppressive suppression field. Feng Xiaolan's son stood with absolute confidence, declaring himself completely invincible inside his magic-forbidden barrier that prevented all skills. Ghost Spirit glared at him with contempt, mocking him as nothing more than a frog trapped in a well with delusions of grandeur. She attacked with blinding speed that caught him off guard, surprising the large man with her velocity. She delivered a powerful kick that forced him to react. Surprised by her incredible agility, he correctly deduced she must be an assassin class. He spun gracefully in midair to evade her follow-up punch attempt. His physical stats clearly overwhelmed hers by a significant margin. Ghost Spirit unleashed a relentless barrage of strikes from every direction. She attacked from a different angle with calculated precision, but he was ready for it and effortlessly caught her fist mid-strike, stopping her assault cold. Holding her hand firmly in his grip, the son mocked her pathetic lack of raw power despite her impressive speed. He reminded her with a sneer that without skills to back her up, her physical attacks were nothing more than tickles to someone of his strength. She struggled desperately to break free, but he delivered a devastating uppercut that connected with brutal force, sending her flying backward through the air. Ghost Spirit crashed hard into the ground as Feng Xiaolan cheered loudly for his son's dominance. The son flexed his muscles arrogantly, taunting her about the massive gap in their strength levels and warning her mockingly not to die just yet. Battered and slumped against the wall, Ghost Spirit couldn't move her body. The son deduced confidently that she must work for Shadow and decided he would interrogate her for information. The towering son strode forward and grabbed Ghost Spirit roughly by the collar, lifting her up. Enraged, he shouted that Shadow had killed his mother in the game multiple times repeatedly and swore he had to kill him for revenge. He gave her exactly 10 seconds to reveal everything she knew about Shadow, then aggressively pulled her closer to his face. He lifted her entire body with one arm effortlessly, threatening to tear off one of her hands if she refused to speak immediately. Instead of showing fear, Ghost Spirit just looked up at him with a mocking smile spreading across her face and called him an idiot. Confused by her reaction, he froze in place until she told him calmly to look at his own body. It suddenly erupted in green, ghostly flames that spread across his skin. He collapsed to his knees, coughing violently, realizing far too late that he'd been poisoned. Ghost Spirit stood calmly with her hand glowing green with toxic energy, and explained that he was a complete fool for thinking his barrier made him truly invincible. She revealed with satisfaction that she'd used a venom enchantment on herself beforehand. While new skills were completely blocked by his barrier, the precast enchantment meant that every single punch she landed had applied a stacking poison effect. The son screamed in absolute agony as the flames consumed him from the inside out, crying desperately for his mother while his father watched in complete horror, unable to help. Ghost Spirit looked down at the dying man without mercy, revealing she had thoroughly investigated both of them beforehand. She identified the father as a common nuisance and the son as Han Bingxiang, a magic-forbidden warlock class. She mocked his terrible build choices, noting he'd arrogantly disdained all support classes and dumped all his attribute points into raw strength alone, only learning the barrier skill specifically to bully weaker players. He died in flames, and Ghost Spirit noted coldly that even the most basic priest skill Dispel would have saved his life if he'd bothered to learn it. Overcome with complete panic, Feng Xiaolan screamed that she'd murdered his son and frantically tried to call the officials for help. Before he could complete the call, a boot suddenly kicked the phone violently from his trembling hand. He looked up in absolute terror to see his neighbor Morgan standing over him, fully healed and absolutely furious. Morgan declared that the barrier was now gone completely and told the old man with menace that it was his turn to pay for everything he'd done. Panicked beyond reason, Feng Xiaoying screamed desperately for help, but his pleas were completely ignored as Morgan delivered a vicious kick directly to his face with full force. Morgan grinned with satisfaction, assuring the terrified old man that he'd hand him over to officials eventually, but first he would beat him senseless until he felt completely satisfied. His wife encouraged him enthusiastically from the side, promising to keep healing the old man so her husband could continue the beating without interruption. Morgan activated a powerful transformation skill, his body bulging grotesquely with muscles in a venom enhancement state that amplified his strength. He then unleashed a brutal barrage of heavy punches, relentlessly pummeling Feng Xiaoying without mercy. His wife cheered him on excitedly, casting healing magic repeatedly to support his assault. The savage beating finally ended with a final crushing stomp directly to Feng Xiaoying's face. The old man died instantly, his body dissolving into particles of light. Magan stood panting heavily, feeling relieved after finally venting his accumulated anger. He asked his wife if the mysterious girl who had saved them was still present. She confirmed she was, mentioning something about an angel's heart skill she possessed. Magan turned around, expressing profound gratitude and saying they would have been completely doomed without her intervention. He suggested they should call the officials immediately, but when they looked around carefully, their mysterious benefactor had vanished without a trace. His wife looked down at torn clothes scattered on the floor, confused as to when exactly she had left. Outside the building, Ghost Spirit had already leaped from the window. As she fell through the air, she opened a communication window with Shadow to report that the mission was complete. His praise for her incredible speed made her smile with pure delight. The scene shifted dramatically to a desolate wasteland located 300 kilometers from Magic City. Four cloaked figures trekked through the harsh terrain, guided by Chu Kunshin as their navigator. A subordinate questioned Chu nervously, worried they were heading in the wrong direction. The entire area was filled with toxic poisonous gas and volcanic fumes that constantly drained their health points, making him doubt anything could possibly survive living there. Theodore remained completely confident despite the concerns. Chu Kunshin, using his specialized leyline perception ability, assured them with certainty that the treasure they sought was located in a nearby cave system. They soon arrived at a massive cave entrance that was spewing ominous red energy into the air. Before entering the dangerous location, Theodore ordered Zuma, their Soul Walker class member, to immediately turn the entire group into an invincible spirit state if they encountered any danger inside. Zuma confirmed he understood the instructions perfectly. The four walked cautiously into the red vortex, carefully navigating the treacherous terrain until they reached a cliff edge overlooking a vast sea of red liquid below. Chu Kunshin suddenly pointed ahead, shouting urgently for them to look at what he'd discovered. Theodore laughed with satisfaction, realizing they had finally found it. A massive fiery plant rising majestically from the center of the Crimson Pool. Chu Kunshin identified it with excitement as the Hellflower of Nightmares and declared with absolute certainty that with this legendary item in their possession, Shadow would undoubtedly die. Theodore's group had arrived at the Deep Purgatory Volcano, a nightmare zone where the system issued a severe warning that the lifespan drain rate was 10,000 times the normal speed. Zuma began trembling uncontrollably, asking Theodore in a shaky voice what the fiery entity before them actually was, because just looking at it made his very soul shiver with primal fear. Theodore calmly identified it as the Hellflower of Nightmares and reassured Zuma that as long as they didn't disturb or wake it up, they would remain perfectly safe. Chu Kunshin noted that since they had successfully found Theodore's target item, it was time to reveal the complete plan. Theodore agreed and called over his subordinate Tony, handing him a glowing blue book called the Divine Book Wall Construction. He explained that it could build massive walls instantly by consuming lifespan as payment. Tony looked at the mysterious book in surprise and activated it experimentally, causing a massive stone wall to materialize out of thin air before them. Tony analyzed the structure carefully, noting that it cost 10 days of lifespan to create, but only had 100,000 durability points. A sweating Tony expressed his serious concern to Theodore, arguing that he had personally witnessed Shadow's devastating attacks and feared this wall wouldn't be nearly enough to stop him. Theodore replied sternly that he was perfectly aware of that limitation, which was exactly why Tony's priority for the next few days was to constantly build walls repeatedly to increase the book's proficiency level. Theodore pointed directly at the Hellflower, ordering Tony to increase the wall's durability to 10 million points through practice. Theodore then revealed his elaborate trap plan. He would lure the Chinese officials and Shadow into this cave together. Once they were safely inside, Tony was to immediately build the wall and seal the only exit completely to ensure the targets lowered their guard. Theodore explained that he and Zuma would enter the dangerous cave with them to maintain the deception. He detailed the escape plan with precision. When he gave the signal to wake the boss monster, Zuma must immediately use his Soul Walker ability, allowing them both to phase through the solid wall and escape to safety, leaving Shadow and the officials permanently trapped inside. Zuma confidently declared he was entrusting their plan's success to the boss monster. Chu Kunshin, however, remained skeptical, pointing out that even if the boss successfully killed the targets, players usually just respawned afterward. Theodore explained the terrifying reality of the Health Flower of Nightmares with grim satisfaction. Once a battle began, the entire cave would be shrouded in a nightmare field. Players trapped inside would accumulate a nightmare gauge steadily, and once that gauge filled completely, they would fall into a nightmare state where the flower drained all their tradable lifespan directly. Combined with the zone's already brutal 10,000 times lifespan drain rate, Theodore predicted with certainty that the victims would face permanent death. Theodore's expression darkened as he emphasized that completely wiping out Magic City's strongest elite squad, especially Shadow himself, would be an absolutely catastrophic loss for Great Xia. He spread his arms wide, promising that once they succeeded in this mission, they would be celebrated as heroes in Country M and would live in absolute luxury forever. The group, including Tony, Zuma, and Chu Kunshin, smiled with undisguised greed at the prospect of their promised reward. However, Zuma asked a practical question. How would they wake the boss from a safe distance since none of them possessed any long-range attacks? Tony mocked him for asking such a stupid question, then bent down casually to pick up a rock from the ground. Tony explained condescendingly that in this game, literally anything could be used as a weapon, and one just needed to throw a rock at it. With foolish impulsiveness, Tony actually threw the rock directly at the Health Flower without thinking. The rock struck the flower, instantly enraging it. A massive surge of violent energy erupted as the boss began awakening furiously. Theodore screamed in absolute panic, calling Tony an idiot and frantically ordering Zuma to use his Soul Walker ability immediately. As the boss's terrifying aura flooded through the entire cave, Zuma transformed them into spirit forms, and the group frantically fled through the tunnel to escape the monster they had accidentally unleashed prematurely. Back outside the cave safely, the group finally recovered their composure. Theodore, absolutely furious at the incompetence that had nearly cost them all their lives, violently kicked Tony to the ground. He screamed at Tony, calling him a complete fool for almost getting them killed. Theodore loomed over the weeping Tony with a terrifying glare, ordering him to stay at this location and practice building walls until he absolutely perfected the technique. He threatened that if Tony failed this task, a powerful figure named Count Bold from Country M would personally wipe him out. The scene shifted dramatically to the corroded forest on the outskirts of the Magic City ruins. A swift white creature lunged forward with predatory speed, biting down viciously on a tree-like monster. Lin Xingyu stood with her squad, watching as the creature decimated the tree's spirits efficiently, which burst into glowing orbs of lifespan upon death. A teammate praised her enthusiastically, marveling at how incredibly powerful her dragon was and asking when she had obtained such an amazing treasure. Lin Xingyu laughed with satisfaction, claiming she had gotten extremely lucky opening a treasure chest just the day before. The teammate noted with envy that it was likely the first dragon mount in the entire game with 100% movement speed bonus. Without warning, Lin Xingyu's face transformed as she detected something wrong in their surroundings. Toxic green gas started spiraling around the entire party in threatening patterns. She called out urgently to her companions to stay alert, crying that additional monsters were concealed in the area. The earth beneath them trembled violently as enormous wooden spikes and aggressive vines burst forth, encircling the party completely. Massive green vines lashed through the air with brutal force, sending the players and the white creature tumbling backward in an explosive blast of chaos. A colossal, terrifying tree monster emerged from beneath the forest floor, its system identification revealing it as the corroded ancestor Ashura, a level 25 Emerald grade boss. The squad found themselves trapped and overwhelmed. The male teammate collapsed onto the ground in complete despair, calculating frantically that the boss possessed 1 million health points, while his own damage output was merely 1,000 per second. He asked desperately what their plan could possibly be. Lin Qingyu opened her communication interface and screamed the only viable solution she could think of. They absolutely needed to invite Big Brother Shadow to rescue them from this impossible situation. She immediately sent Shadow an urgent message, frantically reporting that an enormous emerald-grade boss had manifested and invited him to join their party so he could track their coordinates. Standing among the city ruins, Shadow accepted the invitation with a brief calm confirmation. Shadow examined the location coordinates and messaged the struggling team, stating he was currently over 10 kilometers away but would reach them immediately. Back in the corroded forest battleground, Lin Qingyu studied the map display and her heart dropped into her stomach. She shouted to her teammates that although Shadow was definitely coming to help, she estimated conservatively it would take him nearly half an hour to cover that distance. Lin Qingyu cursed loudly and ordered an immediate retreat from the area. However, the instant she issued that command, Osiris descended dramatically from the sky directly above the towering tree monster. A tremendous blast of wind generated from Shadow's arrival swept powerfully through the entire forest. A system notification informed the beleaguered squad that the wind force had dispersed the poison gas completely, eliminating their negative status effects. Lin Qingyu and her teammates stood frozen with their eyes comically wide in absolute shock. The male teammate stammered in confusion, asking the captain why she had predicted half an hour when barely half a minute had actually passed. Perched atop the skeletal dragon Osiris, Shadow gazed down at Lin Qingyu's squad who stared upward in complete disbelief. Osiris, with glowing purple eyes, focused intently on Lin Qingyu's mount and speculated aloud whether the creature might be a hybrid dragon breed. At the sound of Osiris's actual voice speaking, Lin Qingyu's mount began trembling violently in pure terror. The squad stood stunned, wondering among themselves if the massive dragon had genuinely spoken words. Standing with perfect balance on his mount's head, Shadow clarified that creatures of epic grade or higher possessed the capability to communicate verbally. Osiris requested permission to devour the hybrid creature below, but Shadow coldly instructed it to remain silent. On the forest floor, Lin Qingyu's mount had completely fainted from overwhelming fear. She looked upward with profound awe, remarking that she had never imagined Big Brother Shadow was already utilizing an epic-grade creature as his personal mount. Shadow disregarded her comment entirely and redirected his attention to the enormous tree monster, confirming it was indeed the boss with 1 million health points. He analyzed the tactical situation rapidly, recognizing that his current damage output would require executing a full combo sequence to eliminate the boss, which he considered wastefully inefficient. He desired a single decisive strike instead. Declaring the timing was absolutely perfect, Shadow retrieved the glowing ancient god slate from his inventory. The system identified the precious item as the blessing slate of the blood source ancient god a.k.a. Its extraordinary power was to grant a blessing enhancement upon any skill, providing a random powerful buff. Shadow weighed his available options carefully, noting that his primary damage skills had overlapping mechanical effects. He selected to bestow the blessing upon instant Shadow / specifically. A brilliant golden aura surrounded him completely, and a notification confirmed his skill had been enhanced successfully with the blessing of a.k.a. The system provided detailed information about the upgraded skill, a.k.a.'s blessing instant Shadow / It remained a single target assault, but the number of strikes was now multiplied by 6. Every individual strike counted as a weak point attack automatically, and each hit charged his ultimate skill meter. Shadow's eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he comprehended his skill had been transformed into a devastating single-target burst ability. He rapidly calculated the exponential power increase. A single activation now delivered 54 strikes when combined with his clones. That total became an absolutely staggering 216 hits, more than sufficient to instantly charge his ultimate skill multiple times in succession. Lin Qingyu's teammates observed in bewilderment, wondering among themselves why Shadow was suddenly glowing with energy. His tactical analysis complete, Shadow decided immediately to test his newly enhanced ability. He vanished completely in a swirl of dark energy. A moment later, a teammate spotted him high in the air, yelling that he was engaging the boss in solo combat. Shadow moved with incredible velocity, unleashing the empowered instant shadow slash directly on the giant tree monster. The boss was struck by a devastating storm of consecutive attacks, with dozens of damage numbers, each exceeding 10,000 points, erupting simultaneously across its body. The assault instantly filled Shadow's ultimate skill meter to maximum capacity. His eye blazed with red energy as he realized a single basic skill activation was now sufficient to fully charge his ultimate. Without any pause, he surged forward and unleashed the Crimson Blade technique. The massive red slash carved cleanly through the boss, inflicting a final devastating 450,000 damage. The system confirmed he had eliminated the Emerald Grade boss and provided detailed information about his rewards. The spectating squad stood completely stunned. The male teammates screamed in utter disbelief that he had instantly annihilated an Emerald Grade boss in mere seconds. Lin Xingyu, however, maintained her composure. Enveloped by a dissipating crimson aura, Shadow evaluated his newly enhanced capabilities. He observed that a single activation of Instant Shadow Slash now inflicted approximately 600,000 damage. As Shadow touched down amid the scattered glowing orbs of lifespan, he contemplated his combat abilities. He determined his previous methods were crude and wasteful for high-level engagements. He concluded that his former skill rotation sequences demanded too much unnecessary effort. Gripping his sword firmly, he recognized the slate had generated a devastating synergy between his various skills, amplifying both his damage output and his survivability. Nevertheless, he believed this represented merely the starting point of the Shadow class's genuine potential. Lin Xingyu rushed toward him enthusiastically, exclaiming how incredible he was. Shadow nonchalantly dropped the loot obtained from the boss, informing her team they could claim it all. Overflowing with joy, they expressed their gratitude profusely. He then inquired whether any additional bosses existed in the vicinity. Lin Xingyu excitedly confirmed there were multiple others, beginning to list off several located in nearby zones. Interrupting her mid-sentence, Shadow instructed her to mount his dragon so they could eliminate them sequentially. Lin Xingyu was absolutely ecstatic at the invitation. Osiris launched into the sky carrying Shadow and a screaming Lin Xingyu into the distance. Abandoned behind, the two remaining male members of her squad stared upward in stunned silence. One asked with a thoroughly defeated expression, "What about us?" The scene transitioned to the real world. Inside a conference room located in Magic City, a large screen displayed Theodore's image prominently. An official reported that Theodore from the M Country Embassy had offered critical intelligence regarding the first Diamond Grade boss encounter. Another official questioned skeptically whether such valuable information was being provided without cost. The first official clarified that Theodore's sole request was transportation via flight back to M Country. The lead official expressed suspicion, noting that such a minimal request for information this valuable felt distinctly like a trap. The lead official then raised the primary concern, whether they could realistically defeat a Diamond Grade boss, emphasizing that no player had accomplished it yet. This statement implied that even the legendary Shadow might not achieve success. The lead official proposed an alternative strategy, forming a cooperation with Shadow directly. Another man seated at the table enthusiastically endorsed the concept. He stated that intelligence reports demonstrated Shadow could effortlessly solo Emerald Grade bosses without assistance. He argued that merging their elite forces with Shadow's overwhelming power could make achieving the first kill on a Diamond Grade boss genuinely possible. The lead official remained doubtful, demanding confirmation whether the reports were merely unverified rumors. In response, his subordinate raised a phone displaying clear video footage of Shadow engaged in battle. He explained the footage was captured utilizing a phone created through a Divine Authority book, leaving the lead official utterly speechless. Persuaded by the concrete proof, the lead official agreed to pursue cooperation with Shadow. The other officials unanimously supported the decision. The leader announced he would immediately dispatch someone to establish contact with Shadow. What's your prediction for the next chapter? Comment it below and hype the video if you enjoyed it. Smash like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more recaps. Explore this channel or head to Panel Pursuit for even more. Cheers.